Hi, I'm back. This is another unscripted video essay opinion thing. A little less personal than the last one, hey? But, still just handful of bullet points. And today I'm going to talk about something that I haven't personally had a lot of conversations about, but I see a lot on the internet. And that's the notion of separating the art from the artist. Keep them separate. It's a strange concept, because if you look back, I've done a couple art history classes in my day. The artist is very much a part of the art. It's very much, it's almost more about the artist than it is about the piece of art throughout time. But that is what it is, I guess. So, when I thought of this, I was like, I should actually do some research, see if I can find out where that concept or phrase comes from. I didn't find out where the phrase comes from, but I found some interesting origins that I'm going to run you through real quick. Let's go. You see, I first started just by Googling, where does the phrase separate the artist and the artist come from? And this immediately pop up, but it doesn't go anywhere. And I read this one, this Vox article, which I don't go to Vox, I don't read it, so I don't know if this is something, if they're usually a reputable site or not, but I read through this and it seems to be a good enough article, and it kind of pointed me in the direction of, I had it over here, but new criticism, something I hadn't heard about, but it's this thing from the 20th century where people had kind of shifted and they were criticizing things differently. It's actually a super interesting read, or research, I guess. Important texts here. I read a lot of them. But specifically, there's this is T.S. Eliot. Yeah, it's T.S. Eliot. So this is the Barthes. I guess that's how you pronounce it. Barthes. But he had this reader response theory that basically said that the author doesn't really produce the text, the reader does. The reader takes in what they read, and the historical context, the authorial intent doesn't matter. All that matters is the experience of the reader at the time it is being read. That's super interesting. I mean, if we applied that to a larger, if everybody thought like that, how many Picasso paintings would be in museums and stuff like that? And I don't know, it's a super interesting theory that doesn't necessarily have any lasting implications, but has something to do with it. And the other main thing that I found was T.S. Eliot, who he had this whole thing, this whole you have this whole essay or whatever. It's kind of the main point that comes back to this point is that the end point of poetry is to have no authorial print, or that the author or poet in this case, none of their individual effect should come through. And when poetry is done at its peak, that the poetry should be able to stand entirely on its own and get the emotion and intent across entirely on its own without having to have this relationship with its poet. Which I also thought was super interesting, especially if you apply it to art in general, where we often think about creators of art as their I don't know what the word. Or you just take in if they have experience with the things they're talking about in their type of art, it's good, and it can make things more realistic, and it's one of the main drivers behind diversifying things like the film industry to get more women, more people of color into these creative positions, so that those groups can have more accurate and more realistic, more influential pieces of media, instead of just some white dude, writing what he thinks a black woman talks like. So it's this, like, it almost seems like there's like two mountains, and it's like you have like a smaller peak before you get to the super high peak. And T.S. Eliot's point would be that actual peak, but we have this kind of false peak we have to get to, is to make things represent the audience, to help get art to a place where it is truly representative of the larger audience as a whole, before we're able to kind of strip away personal touch like that and make art that only elicits emotions through itself instead of artistic influence from the creator. Yeah, it's super interesting. I thought I'd mention it. I wanted to do a little bit more of a research thing. So now I've given you that, I guess I'll tell you my opinion. My opinion is that first, in order to separate the art from the artist, a couple things need to happen. First, the art can't be wholly, not even wholly, just it can't be disrespectful or harmful in its own way. An example you see a lot on the internet when people talk about separating the art and the artist is Adolf Hitler and his paintings. A lot of, pretty much all of them, I'm pretty sure. I haven't gone through them. It's just landscapes. I might have done a couple of portraits or still lifes or something, but the couple I have seen have been landscapes. And people are like, oh, well, I can enjoy this painting while also being vehemently, hope that's the right word, vehemently against Adolf Hitler and what he did. And I think the reason people can say that, and that it is a more valid argument, is because they are just still lifes. If Hitler was drawing and painting like a boot crushing a Jewish person or something, then you can't separate the art from the artist. What the artist did and his beliefs very implicitly affected his art. And trying to think, well, I enjoy the brush strokes. That's a very much a weaker argument when the subject of the art piece is problematic in and of itself. Another kind of I don't know. I'm gonna leave that pause in because I think it helps you by that I'm not scripting these. I'm gonna do it off the top of my dome. The bullet points. I think if it isn't directly tied to the artist's, the harm the artist has done and it isn't harmful in itself, the next step is, when you look at a piece of art, is, to me, how separate it is from the artist. Or how separate your enjoyment or consumption of a piece of art, if it benefits the artist. Let me take Picasso, kind of a shit dude, to put it lightly. But if you look at a Picasso painting in a museum, you're not giving any money to him. He's dead, right? Yeah, he died. I'm leaving that in. Can't know everything. Yeah, so, if he was alive and beating women, still, 'cause I'm pretty sure he did that, and you bought a painting directly from him, then you are directly funding a very bad man, right? But, just looking at it in a museum, or even a museum or a private collector buying it from another museum or private collector, that money isn't going to him or probably even his estate. I'm not a professional on, art sales or anything, but I can't imagine a lot, if any, money is going to Picasso's estate when one of his paintings changes hands from a private collector to a private collector, a museum to a museum, private collector to a museum, vice versa, whatever. And so it's very easy to separate the art from the artist in those instances because, he's dead. The art isn't about what he did. It's all very separate. And I also think in a lot of more modern mediums of art, it's getting a lot harder to maintain that separation, because even 20 years ago, let's say you really enjoyed a band, but you figured out that, they, were anti-gay. Well, it may not be something I would do, but I wouldn't hate someone if they're like, oh, well, I really enjoy the music, but I don't want to support them, and then they bought an album secondhand instead of buying an album directly. So they aren't giving money to those people, and they're still able to enjoy the music if the music doesn't have any of those beliefs or whatever in it. The first point or whatever. And so, but it's getting way harder to do that with Spotify and Apple Music and YouTube, where every time you listen to a song, money is being given to an artist. But if you've got a band in your Spotify playlist and you find out they're anti-gay, there's kind of almost no real way to listen to them without giving them money anymore. And it's, are you okay with that? Of course, everybody draws the line, just slightly ahead of where they're at. So if you've done that, you're probably like, oh no, it's okay because I'm only giving it to them maybe the once, or I guess maybe a modern version of secondhand buying would be pirating the music. It's definitely a slipperier slope, because it's way easier for creators to get paid directly like that, as things become digital. And I don't really have an answer on how to fix it or what a direct answer is. I think it's super important that people pay attention to the nuances of this type of argument and realize that, like, with what happened with, like, R. Kelly, if you're buying R. Kelly music while he's going to court or whatever for, like, pedophilia, you're buying his albums and streaming his music, and you're kind of funding his, like, defense. Like, and I'm not necessarily saying that makes you a terrible person and makes you complicit in what he did. I'm really not. It's just something that's past my line. I think it's past a line for a decent amount of people, and it can be hard for people to move their line, especially if they're moving it in a way that makes it so they've crossed it. If they're like, oh yeah, that was a shitty thing, like, it's hard for someone to say, yes, that is a shitty thing if they've done it and they've already made peace with them doing it. So it's just, I don't know, I think it's a more nuanced argument than a lot of people think it is. I think it's the way with a lot of things on the internet. I think the internet pushes people towards extremes. I'm not going to get into necessarily the political implications of that or political effects of that, but even with just something like that, or your opinion on a favorite character or something, the internet kind of pushes people into these camps and very much encourages an us versus them mentality uh, through these communities, and that is something that's kind of permeated its way into this argument. We have people saying, like, no, you can never separate art from the artist. And you have people who say, no, you always separate the art from the artist. And I don't think either of them really consider the proper nuances. I think that's something that needs to be considered. So, yeah, that's this video, I guess. Really don't have an outro. I've got that end card thing I use. Yeah. Fun fact. It's filmed on the same day, even though I'm wearing a different flannel, and my hair's tied back and still kind of wet. My spring breaks. The week this one's coming out. I'm filming this and editing it before I leave for spring break because I'm not going to have my PC. I'm leaving that here. So I want to edit this and get it up to schedule so I don't immediately start a schedule and then have to immediately break it, because I want to do one once a week. I'm going to try to do this once a week. Classes allow me more time. I don't have any classes Friday, so at the very least I should be able to film and edit something real quick on a Friday. Every Friday, I think 1 or 2 p.m. is where I want these to get up. It might be a little bit later if I do it all Friday, if I get swamped during the week, but right now, that's where it's at. Thank you for watching this one. Put your opinion down in the comments below. I really want to do like maybe every couple of these, I'll do 1 or 2 Because I don't think a lot of people are going to be commenting, especially in the beginning. I don't think it's going to go viral or anything. So I think just 1 or 2 comments, then maybe after 4 or so, every 5th video is a reply video where I go through the comments and talk about other people's opinions and stuff. Yeah, I think that's a good way to do this. Really encourages a discussion. Yeah. Thanks for watching, I guess.